Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is deeper and deeper. And what that relates to is processing trauma and why it keeps showing up, things that we think we've cleared or that we've been working on for forever, why it takes forever and why they keep showing up. But before we get started, let's take a moment to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out and illuminating, electrifying, energizing all your cells, all your molecules, all your electrons, lighting you up from the inside out. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation and to bring yourselves present right here, right now, to these marvelous bodies that are the vehicle for our experience of life. So welcome. Maggie's doing a dance for you guys. So it's so good to be here with you. As always, I so appreciate your presence and your engagement. And so deeper and deeper, let's talk about how we process these things, events in our lives that were particularly traumatic and they keep coming back. I know when I was a teenager, and looking at, upsets in my life, traumas, upsets, whatever, I never imagined that I would be in my 50s or 60s or whatever and still processing certain things or still trying to deal with certain issues. And I'm very grateful that at this point in my life, I am beyond so many of them. And yet periodically things arise that just take me by complete surprise, that I never, that I thought were long ago handled, or I discover a new nuance to something that had been an issue throughout the greater portion of my life. So it's very interesting to be looking at the way that some of these instances in our lives continue to impact us despite the amount of work that we do around them. And I'm thinking that it's maybe because these instances are it's maybe the instance is the nexus or the core of something that then has these tentacles that reach out into other aspects of our lives and impact us on all kinds of levels that aren't obvious. So and I think also that in dealing with these traumas, what happens is that we typically desensitize ourselves to the experience of them. And that we think that because we're desensitized, that the impact of the trauma is lifted. And in fact, I'm finding that that's not necessarily the case, where we know that certain things really influenced us, but then there are far-reaching and often obscure connections back to this originating incident or experience. So I know that lots of folks have grown up in households where there was a lot of negative messaging. And it's so interesting to me how, despite all kinds of work, we tend to carry that forward into our lives as a foundational way of being without even recognizing it. Good morning, Bernadette. So glad you're chiming in. It's great to have you here this morning. So we're talking about deeper and deeper, and what that's relating to is the many different phases of trauma that we experience as we're trying to clear it or purge it or heal from it or whatever. And I think part of it is that so much of that kind of trauma, it's not necessarily from one specific incident. It's really more something that is an immersion in a culture, like a family culture, sometimes where there's all kinds of messaging that is subversive. In other words, under the radar. So Bernadette says, we carry what we know until we learn different. To your point, Bernadette, I think that we often don't know what we know. So there are 4 phases of learning. The first phase is we don't know what we don't know. And the second phase is we know what we don't know. That's like when we're first learning something, it's like, wow, there's so much to learn. And we can see how much we don't know. Then the third phase is we know what we know, like our learning is conscious and we're aware of what we've learned. And the fourth stage is we don't know what we know. In other words, our awareness, it's so integrated as part of our beingness that we're not conscious of the depth of our knowledge or of our awareness. And I think that that's kind of what happens in a family environment. And for folks who are in a toxic family environment, there's this constant indoctrination, and it becomes part of the foundational matrix. So it's not something that we're particularly conscious of. And so we don't know what we know. We're not aware of these things that are at work in us and that influence the way that we approach life. And so it often takes some external observation to recognize some of these patterns. You know, some of us have moments where we're graced with a recognition of something that was previously invisible to us. And that's Maggie. Hello, Maggie. Hello, Maggie. I think she was thinking maybe it was getting a little too heavy. I don't know. Nothing like a bird on your nose to be a pattern interrupt, right? Anyway, so we're talking now. It's going to take me a second to see if I can remember where we were. When we look at, I think I was saying that it takes an outside observer, or sometimes we just have a moment where something triggers something in such a way that it makes the invisible visible. And so the idea of deeper and deeper is that there are, it's almost like this thing like a ganglion, you know, like that puts out all these arms and grabs onto all these different parts of us, you know, where these things become very deeply rooted within us in often unlikely ways. And so here I just, it came to mind that many of us have phrases that we grew up with that were immense triggers for us. So for me and in my family, it was, you're not a free and independent agent, right? And that was really interesting. It used to make my skin crawl to hear that, because what it meant was that I felt, well, what was attendant to that is that I felt controlled. It's not that I was oblivious to my impact on other people in my family. It was that that phrase was being utilized to, how it felt to me was to dominate and control, and to take away or to dismantle any of my desires. Anyway, so Bernadette says, when we think, feel, and accept family normals, it can be eye-opening when a calm may come over you, seeing differences with how others may live. Yes, so yeah, when we grow up, mine was, you're not old enough to know. Wow. Okay, so we all have one of these. We should be talking about that at some, maybe we can do a morning on that at some point. But we all have these phrases that become triggers. And another friend has one, convince me why we should let you do that, for instance. You're not old enough to know. So Bernadette, that's really an insidious one, because it etches away at your own awareness. It invalidates your awareness. Plus it's also keeping you as a perpetual child. Really challenging, right? So the thing is that these phrases just sort of etch their way into our awareness, and kind of like set off these triggering reactions, right? So that it's a chain reaction that happens as a result of these things. And those phrases are conditioning phrases, right? Like, if that's what we're being taught, whether we rebel against it or not, on some level, that's what we're being indoctrinated to. And if that's the case, then we often don't even have awareness of the ripples that are caused by these phrases. Good morning, Elaine. So good to have you with us. I love your icons, and I love the little mirror in there. That's awesome. Thank you. That's beautiful. So Elaine, maybe you have a phrase that you grew up with that used to make your teeth hurt. One of those things that you kept getting told, and that just was something that would make you cringe. I think that this is an interesting thing, because the reason that we end up needing to revisit so many of our life traumas, even at 50, 60, 70 years old, is because it's almost like they have tentacles reaching out into all different places in our lives that we don't even know. And I also think that it may be that the evolution of our ability to deal with those traumas, as we get stronger, we get to maybe look at them in different ways. And it also has to do with the way that we're able to integrate these things. I think what happens is, as I said earlier, that we become desensitized to the trauma. It's like it becomes a story. We know the story, but we then become disconnected from the emotional experience of it. And because we've never processed that emotional experience of it, it still remains there, almost like a splinter that just goes deeper and deeper, and then can get infected and create havoc. So Elaine says, yes, that I was stupid, retarded, and will never be able to do anything. I would never be anything. But it turns out it was my greatest gift. Well, I'm so sorry that you experienced that messaging. Wow, just brutal, brutal, brutal. And I think that we have the ability, as you're pointing out, to turn these tragedies or these experiences that are that could be debilitating. We do have the ability to turn them out and turn them into our greatest gift. But the thing is that some people don't get to that place, and being told over and over that you're stupid and retarded and you're never going to be anything, what a nightmare. And what a blessing for you that you had the spirit to be able to say, that's not true, and I'm going to prove different. And that programming can still, maybe not in you, Elaine, but can still be showing up years and years and years later, despite work done to counteract that programming. So Bernadette says, to Elaine, did it give you fuel to prove them wrong? Beautiful question, Bernadette. And Elaine says, but what people were saying at that time wasn't as important as what I needed to do to stay alive and help my brothers and sisters do the same. So you found a mission to be able to support your family, to move beyond yourself. So maybe that it sounds like your will was your salvation in so many ways. Thank you, Sani. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. Welcome. I don't think I've seen you here before. It's great to have you with us. So we're talking about the cycles of so Sani says, I'm in Pakistan. That's amazing. So we have a worldwide audience today. How wonderful is that? So we're talking about processing through these life challenges and clearing them. Why is it that it takes so many cycles, and how is it that we can carry things from our childhood unresolved, or that we thought we had resolved, into our later years, and they're still having an impact? And I think part of the reason for that is that they become part of our matrix. And in order to truly clear them, it means rewriting the foundational program. It means reconstructing the matrix that we are living from. So Elaine says, I'm not sorry for my life. So powerful and grateful for every experience. And for my mom and dad, I chose wounded parents to awaken the God true self. And Elaine, you've been on such a journey, my heavens, from the few excerpts that you've shared, you've really lived quite a life. I think it would be awesome for you to write an autobiography, because your story is one of profound triumph. And the thing is that I think we can get to a place where, well, years ago, my anthem used to be, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I think that there is a place where there's a choice point where we get to transform or die. And maybe that is, like we get to die to our old self or actually die. And so Elaine says, so many have asked me to write a book. Well, maybe you should get a ghostwriter to help you with that. And you could just, because it sounds like your life would be your story would be an amazing movie too. Anyway, I think that it takes pressure to make a diamond, and we all experience our challenges in life. The thing that we're talking about today, though, is, and it is a curiosity to me to see how issues carry through our lives. There are themes that carry through our lives. And at different points in our lives, we have a greater or lesser capacity to be processing the experiences of our lives. And it's interesting to me because I deal with clients of all ages, and I see that there is a way. I'm finding that the core connection work is really effective in uprooting these long held traumas and patterns. But the key that I find that makes a difference that most of us don't do, that keeps things ingrained, is we don't allow the experience of the emotion. We don't actually allow ourselves to be present to it without story and without judgment. And when we do allow ourselves to presence ourselves to our experience in that way, then it has an opportunity to move rather than be pushed deeper and deeper and deeper. And as children, we don't have the tools, we don't have the awareness to recognize that these things, first of all, to recognize that the things we're being fed aren't true, oftentimes, and also to know how to process the experience. So, and no, we're not taught how to do that either, typically. So Elaine says you do have to die to know who you really are. I agree with you 100%, Elaine. You must die first and rise. And when you do, you laugh your butt off. I love that, Elaine. That's so awesome. So this is another thing that I have noticed in my work with people, is that when we confront these foundational experiences or ways of being, to clear them, there's often tremendous resistance and fear of that death. Exactly. It's not a physical death. It is. And although for Elaine, you apparently did do the physical death routine too, and came back, I think you said multiple times, if I recall correctly. But when we face there's the fundamental fear that we have as human beings is the fear of annihilation, of ceasing to exist. And I think that that's more of a fear, more than the fear of death, is the fear of annihilation. So like in meditation, as we get deeper and deeper into meditation, we become less and less of ourselves and more of the expanse of unknown. And that is a death in its way of the beingness that we know. And what it opens us to is the beingness that we truly are, which is beyond time and space and physicality, right? We are consciousness. And when we are transiting that bridge from our our identity awareness to the expansive, unbounded beingness that we are in essence, there is that fear. And I don't know if you guys are meditators and if you've encountered moments of fear as this unknown vastness starts presenting itself, the fear of dissolving, of disappearing. And I think that I'm just trying to loop this back around to the deeper and deeper how we move through trauma. I think that what we get to do is to allow the key that I'm finding to releasing all of this stuff, whatever it is to feel it, to allow the experience without judgment or story, to be present to it in your body and in your mind, and breathe through it and allow it to move, and it will move of its own accord. And beyond that, otherwise there's this, and what happens when we do that is that the matrix reshapes itself. Like, I don't think that when we go in there with a pickaxe and a shovel and explosives or whatever, that we're able to unearth these things in a way that really completes them. When we allow ourselves the experience of it, rather than the thought of it, rather than the story of it, when we allow ourselves the experience of it, that's when we allow things to shift and become truly complete. So that's it for this morning. And as always, I so appreciate your being here and your engagement, and you do really, truly, truly light up my mornings. So I hope I can do the same for you. So until next time, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here on the Enlightened World Facebook page each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. And please, as always, check out the other wonderful programming on Enlightened World Network, EWN One with the Earth, Enlightened World Living, all on Facebook. And I look forward to seeing you again here really soon. So much love to you.